and get that started. So again, this is our Careers in Film program. And in case you all weren't aware, which to be truthful, I wasn't until recently, Virginia, and specifically our Metro Richmond area, have become a popular place to produce films, which is pretty exciting. In fact, there are currently 3 films taking place right now, and they're in various stages of production in Richmond. And what's more, the film industry is, from my understanding, really thriving right now, even as other businesses and fields are maybe suffering a little bit during the pandemic. The film industry is doing well. And that's because there's a huge need for entertainment right now. As we're all stuck at home, we are looking for things to do, things to watch, things to entertain us. And so that's exciting. And what that means is more jobs available. So if you live in the Richmond area, because it's become a popular place to produce film, this could be a very viable career path for you. And that's why we're bringing this program to you today, to introduce you to various careers in the film industry, talk to you about what a path towards that might look like, and also give you opportunities to find out what a day in the life of these professionals might look like, and then ask questions too at the end. So we'll be doing a Q&A with our panelists, and today we're joined by several people. Checo Varese is a cinematographer, and he'll explain to you what exactly that means and what he does. Neil Spisek is a production designer. We also have Karen O'Hara, who is a set decorator. Hi, Karen. And Karen Kane, who is an assistant director. And Kelly Gesbeck, who is an art production assistant. So thank you all for being here, and just sort of being willing to share your experiences with our local teens and young adults.
Thanks.
As I mentioned, yeah, absolutely. This is great. And you all are all working on the same film right now, which is pretty exciting.
We're trying to.
We're
trying to all be on the same page. Yes.
Karen Kane emailed me yesterday and said you're kind of really in the throes of it right now. So I really appreciate you taking the time out to do this. I know you all are busy.
This is very refreshing to just not to talk about work. Very refreshing. So thank you for that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So as I mentioned, we're going to start out with a panel discussion. We'll do an overview of what each of you do, how you got there. And then towards the end of our program, we'll do a brief Q&A for the audience. If you're in the audience right now, I encourage you to use the chat feature as we go through to converse with each other, make comments, that sort of thing. But if you have a specific question you'd like to pose to the panel, please put it in the Q&A feature and we will address that at the end. All right, so let's get started. Okay, so question number 1, and as I mentioned, whoever feels called to answer, feel free to jump in. But first, we'd like to kind of briefly describe what you do in each of your roles. So whoever would like to go first, but I'd love to hear from each of you.
I'm the production designer, and I think on every movie, my role is probably slightly different because every movie is a completely different approach and a different idea. But basically, I'm responsible for the departments that handle the visuals. So anything that has to do with the set and locations and set dressing and props, I kind of oversee it all. Hopefully, I encourage everybody to all be making the same project and the same ideas. And everybody that contributes to my department is hugely involved. So it's a very collaborative thing, but I'm the head of that department and I hire people and hopefully get everybody funneled into making the same project.
I work Sorry, Karen,
Neil,
go ahead.
no, I just was going to lead straight into since I'm within a similar world as Neil, I'm hired by the production designer to decorate the film. And again, like Neil said, it's collaborative. So we work with the director and the cinematographer, like Checo on this film, doing really well, and we create the sets that are for all the characters, hopefully giving the audience some insight, even if subconsciously, but helping to tell the story.
I'm the assistant director. I'm the first assistant director. There's a couple of us. I work very closely with the director on a project like this, which is a mini series. I work closely with the showrunner, and I schedule the show. I schedule what we're shooting on what days and in what order. I do that through collaboration with the actors when they're available, and consequently their agents. I do that in collaboration with the locations department. Certain locations aren't available on certain days. I do that in collaboration with Neil, the production designer, when we're building sets, what's available, when it can be built, when we should, give them more time. I am also responsible in working with, I'm responsible for every human being and dog or fish who shows up in front of the camera, getting them information as when they're going to shoot through my colleagues in my department. And I run the set on a day-to-day basis. I'm the person who says roll sound, and I'm not the person who says cut. So that, in a nutshell, is my job.
I am the cinematographer.
Go Checo.
I am the cinematographer, which means I'm the person that, after Neil, Karen, Kelsey have created a backdrop for me. Imagine a canvas, and they painted the canvas and they put all the features and pieces there. I get to get very nervous and make honor to the canvas they give me and put lights or use the natural light, hopefully. I work in collaboration with staff of talented people that help me on that department. And Karen Kane, as she said, she says when to and how to and where to go. And if I have a question, I usually ask Karen, including what is the website for this webinar. So I'm competent in everything that has to do with organization. And if you imagine a movie that everybody has seen, the light that comes and the camera that moves and the choice of tool to use, it usually ends up in my lap, on my lap. And every movie is different. Some directors are very specific about what they want. Some other directors are more laissez-faire, and they say, this is what I feel and this is how I feel. And you have a better sort of understanding after a couple of days. And there is the third kind of directors that you don't understand anything and you pray to God every night that more or less you survive the day. But that's pretty much it.
I am a PA, which means production assistant. Right now I'm the art production assistant. So I'm working for Neil. I'm working for Neil. So everyone up on this panel, they all have PAs, they all have assistants, they all have a support team. And I'm pretty much like one of many, many other PAs who are contributing to trying to get the day moving forward while they all have the pressure of like whatever they just said. So we have to make sure that if there's like a Zoom meeting or something, we kind of have to like keep track of the schedule because they might be pulled in like 10 different directions. We get lunch for everybody. We figure out if there's a pickup of a graphic and where it needs to go. We get stuff from, the the print shop in Karen's hands so she can figure out where that is. There are a million different types of PAs, whether it's in the office or on set, and it kind of varies, but you're very much a chameleon, and it's just a very interesting and on your feet support role is, I guess, how I would put it.
I think you forgot one very important thing that you do. You do a lot of research.
Yeah.
Which, on a project like this one, it's deceiving, this project. There's a lot of information and it needs to be kept straight. And we are working on a, how shall I put it, Checo? We're working on a linear project that is being shot in a very unlinear way. So keeping track of where we are in the story year-wise and detail-wise, Kelsey's been critical in that department. She's helped us immensely with research and script detail and just keeping us honest, I guess would be a way to phrase it.
Thank you. It sounds like you all have very varied roles, but all very interconnected as well. Kind of one affects the other. So that's great. My next question is, how did you each get started on your career path? And maybe can we start with Checo?
Oops. Yes, of course. I never wanted to be a filmmaker. I grew up in South America, in Peru, during a very struggling time of my country. So we had military government, so there were no movies. The movie, let's say Costa Gavras Z, I never saw until I moved to another country because it was. So I went to Italy, study architecture. This is what I wanted to do all my life. So I came back. I'm not gonna say when because I'm gonna tell everyone how old I am, but it was late 70s, early 80s. In economical crisis number 200 of the decade, nobody was building anything. So a friend of mine said, "You want to work for me?" And I said, "Yes, of course. What are you?" Adventure travel. I have an adventure travel company. I'm like, adventure travel? Are you going to pay me to do that? Yes. Okay, great. At the fantastic salary of $8 a day, I started in the office. And they were telling me what to do. And at the other corner of the office, somebody said, "Hey, you, the new one, do you speak English?" And I said, "Yes." "Do you know anything about photography?" "Yes, of course. I took like a black and white class in architecture." And he literally answered in English, "Yes, we have a camera assistant," and hanged up. Which is the role of assisting the cinematographer. And it's a very technical role. It's extraordinarily complex. It's very difficult. I'm like, whoa. What? And he goes, National Geographic Explorer is coming to do a documentary of the origins of the Amazon River. And you've been hired. So that Thursday, that was a Monday, that Thursday I met the producer and director. And by Monday next week, I said, I'm never gonna do anything else in my life. So there he goes, never been an architect.
Wow. How about you, Karen Kane?
Oh, I came strangely. I was born and raised about an hour south of Los Angeles, California, and didn't work in Los Angeles for the first time in my life until 2 years ago. So I moved to New York. I worked in the corporate world. I did statistical analysis for expert witness testimony, but I always wanted to work in the movies. I just didn't know what all those little jobs were at the end of a movie, which I now know is called the final crawl. So I took night school classes and I studied what those little jobs were. And, my background is analytical, of course, mathematical. So the best route for me seemed to be the assistant director department. And there's a little publication in New York through the Mayor's Office of Film that tells you about all the independent movies in town that are being made. And I wrote to one of them and I changed my resume to be more conducive to films and not all my, other jargon that I was using in my other career. And I started working as a location manager on a $125,000 movie that already had all its locations. And so they just wanted me to be a liaison because I was a grown up at the time. I was in my early 30s. And so I went and I worked on this little cult film, and I just was the liaison with the location people. And as it is in this industry, and I think everybody on this panel can attest, it's about who you know and who you meet and who you know and who likes you. And my very next job was as a second assistant director on a movie set. And interestingly enough, the director was someone I played softball with, corporate softball with, on a corporate softball team. So he was also a wannabe movie person. So that's how I started. And I naturally went into the assistant director department, and it's a good fit for me and the way I think. But interestingly enough, I've come out of it learning so many creative things and really have enhanced that part of my brain that is probably not as natural as I would like it to be. So that's how I got started.
It's really interesting. I think that's a good takeaway for any career path. It is about who you know a lot of the time. It's about making those connections and networking. That's great. How about you, Karen O'Hara?
Well, my father was an artist, and so I had been taking art classes my whole life. I grew up in Chicago, so I was taking classes at the Art Institute and a couple of local other places. And I decided to, at the time that I went to the university, you could design your own major. I don't think there were any film classes, but that wasn't something that crossed my path either. You could design your own major. So I took a lot of courses in everything from architecture and drafting and graphic design and history of the arts and a lot of printmaking. And anyway, and then I came out, I worked as a graphic designer for a few years. Somebody asked me if I would like to work as a PA at a small production company. I thought, sure, why not? Give it a change. So I didn't realize at the time, but that was a job that really I did everything. I was the first AD, I was the casting director, I was shopping, I was this costume designer, I was the I ordered all the camera equipment, I hired the crew, I did the budget eventually, I did the sets, I found the locations, made all the arrangements. Anyway, it was a crazy job, but I loved it. And then and I really, it was a way for me to understand, you know, all of what went into it, mostly on commercials. Then the owner of the company at the time told me that the union in Chicago was under pressure. The federal government had stepped in and frozen their pension fund, because they needed to diversify. And there were, he asked me if I think I wanted to join. I again said, sure, I will. I didn't realize that there were no women and no, you know, other people besides a lot of white men and their sons. So there were, that day that I was sworn in was 5 women and 1 African-American male in front of a big group of people who were, I think, they unfroze the pension plan, but they were not necessarily that pleased to have us there. But that was where I started. And then from that point on, I just started to get calls to work. And I decided at a certain point that if I was going to work in the art department, which was my natural fit, I should move to either New York or Los Angeles so that I could choose the projects instead of having the projects choose me. And I visited both places and I couldn't afford to live in New York. So I moved to Los Angeles and just kept working there. very lucky to work with a lot of very, again, like Karen Kane said, it's all the connections. Few people that I knew in Chicago had moved to New York, got to know designers there. It was very much about the people that I got to meet on each show that led me to the next film.
That's great. Thank you. How about you, Kelsey?
So I think it's interesting because I'm very non-linear in how I found this. And you can start as a PA you can start younger than I did. But I grew up in Arizona, but I went to VCU here in Richmond. And I studied advertising, and copywriting came really natural to me. And so that's what I just thought I would do. I did that in New York for a short time right after I graduated, and I just couldn't get with the like corporate kind of like I guess the routine all the time, and I wasn't really too inspired, and I didn't know how I fit into it. So I ended up traveling to Portugal and working at a hotel for a while, and just trying to like see what else was out there. I actually ended up meeting people who worked in this industry, but I kind of thought it was something that would be out of my league. So I was like, I don't really know how, that's very cool, but I don't know how, I'll probably go back and do advertising. But when I got back to the States, I moved to New York, and I worked for a nonprofit as a marketing person doing copywriting. And they work with the film industry because they do art installations, but they also they work with the city on location permits and everything in downtown Brooklyn. So I started to meet more and more of those people. And a few of them had asked if I would PA on the weekends for them. So that was kind of my first like introduction to it. And I figured I can assimilate pretty well to this stuff. I have the, patience and confidence to just kind of like jump on and do it. But I didn't think I would pursue it. And then I came back to Richmond to kind of incubate and figure out what I wanted to do. I love this place. It's such a creative city. You can afford to be like financially independent as a woman and figure it out here. So I did that. And then a friend of mine, I was working at an architecture firm here for a while. They treated me so well and I loved it. But unless I wanted to be an architect, I couldn't really move up. So a friend of mine had said, hey, I work for the Virginia Film Office and someone needs this administrative assistant. And it was really a PA, but they kind of marketed it as like an admin position. And I stopped working at the architecture firm. And the next day I started working for the extras casting director on The Good Lord Bird a couple of years ago. And I just never looked back because I felt like I had so many skills, and I still find so many skills that just transfer. And that's kind of how I ended up in this industry. I don't think I could see myself anywhere else. And my like nonlinear path still translates, if that makes sense. So.
Yeah, that's great information too. That skills in one career can translate completely to another career, and not to forget that. Neil, how about you? How did you get started?
I guess it was the summer after 8th grade. I went to a summer theater program at Baldwin Wallace College, and I was just, a kid. And it was a summer theater program where they produced 3 shows in the summer. And, I was too young to have a job, but I needed an activity for the summer, and that was it. And I was hooked. That was it. So from that point on, I've only had one other job that's not theater related, theater, film, television related. I was a cook at a Ponderosa Steakhouse for a summer, which is an invaluable skill. I can cook steaks for 50 people, no problem. It's really great. Anyway, so I did that. Then in high school, I worked at the public television station I'm from Cleveland, Ohio. And then I designed sets for community theaters through high school. I knew I wanted to pursue design in the theater, or so I thought. I applied to Carnegie Mellon University and was accepted, amazingly. So I did 4 years there and met, I don't know, I would say maybe not hundreds, but many people that I still am very good friends with and are connected in the industry with, and are all working in the industry. So that was an incredible experience. The day I graduated, I moved to New York City. A former student of Carnegie, somebody I'd gone to school with, offered me a job for $100 a week at Brooks Van Horn Costume Company, being some sort of PA assistant kind of thing. While I was working there, I met a woman called Ann Roth, who is a costume designer, amazing person, and a incredible friend and mentor. And I guess it's almost 50 years later, we're still friends and, you know, colleagues. We've worked together over the years, but I met her in the workroom and our professional relationship grew. So eventually I became her assistant and I worked with her on films and Broadway, and, you know, anything she was doing, I was sort of involved with. And then I started, so I was working in the costume industry for a while. And then through a connection, I worked with her on a Broadway show called The Best Little Whorehouse in Texas. And the director, Peter Masterson, was doing his first film, which was The Trip to Bountiful. And he asked me, he knew that I wanted to pursue a career in design, and he asked me to do it. I, of course, had no idea what I was doing. I just knew I was going to help him tell this story. And of course, that film, the leading lady, won, Geraldine Page won an Oscar. So the film got a little bit of notice, and that kind of set me on my way. I did a bunch of low budget films. I was still working back and forth between the costume industry and production design. And then I decided maybe it was time to move to California, and my opportunities became bigger once I was in Los Angeles. I got an agent and I met more people, and well, here I am. And I do think it is true that it is about knowing people and making relationships with people. But I don't want to believe that there isn't something inside of you, or a skill or a desire or a talent or a something that keeps you, you know, that those people see in you and know that they want to work with you, that they want to create with you, that they want to make things happen with you. I'm not sure, I don't think that it's only who you know. I think it has to do with your own interest and desire and your God-given talents, I think, you know, and letting them show. I do think, although I knew that I wanted to pursue a design career, I didn't really think as I started out that I would be designing films. I thought I'd be working in the theater. So my path was pretty much design oriented all the way along, but my point is, I think even when you know what you want to do, I think you have to leave yourself open to the things that come at you. And, oh, well, that might be interesting, or, hey, maybe I'll pursue that. You know, I think it's a combination, even if you do know where you're going, that you want to be open enough to let things happen, you know?
Thanks, Neil. You make some really good points. You know, in addition to making connections, it's about following your passions, being open to opportunities, you know, a combination of all those things. So those are great. My next question is, and a couple of you already touched on it a little bit, but for your career paths or the careers that you're in now, did you require any special education or training with, you know, regard to your specific positions?
I can interject on that question, but I also wanted to go back a little bit to what Neil said, and I couldn't agree more with the fact that it does matter who you know, but it matters who you are and how much you know of yourself. You have to wake up earlier than everybody else and probably go to sleep later than everybody else to make sure you're responsible of everything you do and say, and at least try to own your decisions. Even if it's a little tiny decision 30 years ago, I own that decision. It's my decision. It's not because I knew a friend. It just, I knew a friend, but I was wise enough to tell my friend, please give me a hand. Or I was honest enough to say, no, I don't know anything, but if you want to take the chances, I won't let you down. I'll try. And I think that's very important because there is a lot of weight given to networking, and networking is a full-time job. But you can get lost into networking, and then you'll have 3,000 friends in Instagram and 70,000 friends in Facebook, and that will take all your time. And that one time you could help somebody picking a box, or writing a copyright for the film commission, or helping someone pick up a location. You lose that because you're so obsessed with networking. I don't know if that makes sense. I was rambling a little bit, but it's who you are inside and what can you give, and the generosity you can give to everybody that whether hires you or helps you or whatever. Anyway, sorry.
No, I completely agree. I think the collaboration, to let yourself be open enough to be with the group of collaborative people, and then bounce off of everyone and take everybody's energy and take everybody's ideas and, make it all be a thing. I completely agree, Checo. I think you have to let yourself be yourself and push as hard as you can to do as well as you can, but also use everybody's energy that's around you and, make it happen. Yeah.
And you had a question about the skills. I've got to get back to that one. My family were jewelers, so I started with a little jewelry work in my father's shop. And then I had a little sailboat, so I know how to tie a knot. And then I speak several languages, and that's coincidence, not because I'm smart, just because of where I grew up. And then I studied architecture, and none of it leads you to film. But if you speak several languages, somebody will hire you to go to a weird country. If you're an architect and know how to read a floor plan, you can have an intelligent discussion with Neil or his colleagues. And if you know how to fix a little wedding ring, you probably know how to fix a camera. So anything you've learned in your life leads you to who you are at the end. So no skill, and I can cook 20 steaks, not 50. Everything that leads you to who you are at the end. No knowledge is wasted. We're a sponge, and it's unlimited what I can learn. And the more you learn, and the more you're not narrowed down to a little path, the more chances you get to be who you should be.
And I think, Checo, also, to build on what you and Neil are saying, is also because it's such a collaborative occupation, we all have to listen and be open to what we don't know. And every film I've ever done, there's always something that I don't know. There's a moment, I don't think there's any school that could teach you the ability to, those little things to absorb and how to listen to somebody else and hear what they need and help them if you can, or to say, I don't know, but let me ask somebody who will know.
Also, we're in the business, along those lines, Karen, we're in the business of telling stories. And usually humans, sometimes dogs, cats, but mostly humans. And all of us, in all of our disciplines, the bottom line is, how can we best tell this story? And for all of us, all of our life experiences are what we use to make our stories truthful. So an experience that Checo had 20 years ago with somebody in a restaurant where the light was blah, 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 you know, that's an important piece. And he remembered, you know, my trip to Italy where I met this crazy woman in a church and there was a conversation, and there's a character in a movie where, oh, she might be kind of like her and she had on a babu. Your life experiences, all of them. And the more you can put yourself into the middle of as many experiences as you can, not just related to our craft, but also to the world, you know, current events and reading and novels and museums and portraits and touring architecture. I mean, all of it becomes critical to our jobs, you know, and formal education is a great thing. I mean, you do, you know, that obviously is important, but also just the education of living your life and filling it as much as you can with as many experiences you can is great for you as a person, but it's also great for us as filmmakers, I think.
Another challenging part of this career is that, and people may not realize, this isn't a job, this is a lifestyle. We all live a lifestyle. We work, as Checo touched upon, a lot of hours. I wake up at 5:15 in the morning. I leave at 6 in the morning. I come home at 7:30 or 8 at night. I don't belong to a book club. I don't belong to a stitch and bitch. You know, I can barely keep a cactus alive. So, but then there's these times where you get off, you have time off. Other word is unemployment. I call it time off, you know, where you're out there and you're living in the world. And there's also, I don't know many industries where there's so many people in your life and you're so close to them that I don't spend 14 hours a day with loved ones. I spend 14 hours a day at work with everyone on set, with Checo, and you really learn a patience and appreciation of other people. And like Karen said, what they have to offer. We are some of the nicest and most resourceful people you will ever meet in your life. And I'm, you know, Neil and Karen are very much in the planning stages as well, in the stages with me of that moment of making it work. But I'm mostly in that moment of making it work. I'm prepping it and everything, but in the moment of making it work, and you're solving problems because it's about the shot, it's about the scene, it's about what's in front of you. And there's a whole group of people there absolutely ready, willing, and able to help you make it work. And I didn't learn that in college. You know, I didn't learn that in a formal class. It really is a life experience thing that you just so appreciate it when every day that you're around people who are there to solve problems with you. And like Karen said, you're listening and everyone has an idea. Some are good, some are bad, but there's always an idea out there. Nobody's stumped by something that happens in the moment. It's like putting out little fires. Okay, well, let's do it this way. Let's solve it this way. Let's solve it. And you just can't learn that formally. And so like I said, you don't work with people 14 hours a day and you're a jerk, because you won't get a lot of work. So it's a very unique environment.
I would say also that, you know, I didn't go to film school, cinema school. I didn't study architecture or any of that, but in all of the other things that I did in my life, and I feel like a lot of those times I wasn't sure like what I'm doing, but I think it's important to remember, or it's important to remember that in all of the minutia of the days when you're just still figuring it out or whatever, you're still getting your life together, so to speak. You are acquiring so many, you know, different skills. I mean, the times that I was a camp counselor, I've been waitressing since I was 15. That has come into this role like immensely, just being able to be quick on your feet. You know, you're not the one that's necessarily, you know, kind of, you're basically, it's service, you know, industry stuff has really like transferred over. Working in an office and just having to figure out what it is, Googling something, which is like just figuring it out, teaching yourself, all of those things have definitely come into play. The things that I used from my days at VCU are, I mean, a few research skills and things like that, but I mean, I credit myself for wanting to learn and wanting to do something else, and knowing that like once I found this industry, I didn't want to do anything else. And I felt like it was very much like home, and I haven't looked back. I totally agree with Karen Kane, who just said that this is a lifestyle. It's so different than anything else, but if you love it, you'll know. Like if you want to pursue that, you'll know. And it's an adjustment, but it feels very welcoming. And if there are technical skills, Lindsay Coda, who's our assistant art director on the show, has really taken me under her wing. And she says, Kelsey, if you want to be an art director, you can. She has all these amazing, even though she's from California, she has all these old, books, like first edition books and things. And she puts them on my desk and she says, that's what you need to do. Don't just Google the first thing. I want you to read that. She'll buy me books about, she's trying to get me to move to LA. She bought me this, this book, and it's The Mirage Factory. And it's all about, the story of it. And she's the one who's really encouraging me. She's like, oh yeah, you can do that. Yeah, this is what you need to do before, you need to learn to draw. You need to learn, Revit, whatever it is. She's happy to take me aside, answer my questions, do all of that. And you, as a PA, you're really a sponge. That's kind of where you get like your knowledge. And that is really with any industry. If you're on the support level, if you're the PA, the receptionist, the dental assistant, whatever it is, you are, you're not always the one who's like, making, speaking to everybody else, but you are a constant listener. And so you can see how they're leading, how they, lead their team, how they, point out different, how they critique people, the problem solving, all of that. That's kind of like where you're getting your, I guess, your school of all of that. And that's okay. You don't have to be the person who went to film school. You can be, but you don't have to be. I didn't do it. And I don't feel intimidated like I maybe would feel intimidated if I were a copywriter at an ad agency right now, working 9 to 9 or whatever those hours might be. I don't think that I would feel like I was getting that much out of it or really seeing myself in it as much as I am surrounded by people who come from all over, and they're willing to kind of take you under their wing if you have, the fervor for it and you're willing to ask questions. I think that's, you kind of have to educate yourself and school yourself and hustle and just make it happen. That's kind of what I think it's more important than having the right degree under your belt.
Thank you all. That's some really great insight, especially for some of our students that maybe don't want to pursue a traditional, going on to a four-year college and, valuing some of those experiences after graduation that maybe aren't directly into school or directly into a film school, as you mentioned, but, knowing that all of those skills can still be valuable if they decide to pursue this path. So that's great. So what does a typical day look like for you? Or do you have a typical day? Maybe you don't, but could you kind of describe what that might look like for someone that is doing your job?
Well, for me, and I think for all of us, film production is broken into, for us because of where we are in the process, but it's broken into pre-production and production. In the film industry, there's also before us development and after us post-production, but we're where it's actually happening. So those days are very different. So in the pre-production, for me, it's about having read a script and being interested in doing it and talking to a director and them wanting me to work with them, and then having a framework and images and vision for what I think maybe the whole thing is. So in pre-production, it's about researching anything that is historical. It's about guiding set designers who work as architects of sets. Literally, they do blueprints and drawings and imagine the specifics of each set. Working with Karen, the set decorator, in terms of, what is this, what are each of these sets and what is it they need to say and do? Working with Checo and, does this work for you? The space, should it be bigger? Should we make it smaller? Does it feel right? You know, the planning stage, right? So the pre-production days are basically in an office or looking at locations. And then a production day is a shoot day, which Karen and Checo can tell you more of. But for me, in my position, it's what we call opening a set. I am there in the morning and making sure everybody has what they need, and if not, try to accommodate it. On a show like the one we're working on, where we're opening multiple sets a day, it's, you know, I'm there in the morning and then I'm off and running. On other shows, I spend more time through the course of my day on the shooting set, because that is where the hub of the, you know, the information is. The director's there, the DP is there, the AD, it's where I meet with the costume, you know, it's where the hub of activity is. But Karen's and my job is about, where are they tomorrow? Where are they next week? Where are they next month? So, so anyway, pre-production, the initial planning stages where you spend your days doing that with each person. And then in production, we're still doing that because we're planning the sets that are coming, but there's also the most important thing, what's happening in front of the camera that day. Does that, I guess that's, yeah.
That's great. Thank you.
My day, just to follow through a little bit with Neil, because we're a team. I think in production, in pre-production, we're, like Neil says, talking about color usually, and about the characters and how we can help tell the story with those things. So, and then there's a lot of research, and then there's a lot of, for me, finding all the elements to make that happen.
And don't forget the part where it's, how the heck are we going to do this with this much time and money?
Yeah.
There's always that, right? I mean, the game is, it's never everything you always wanted and we're going to always get it and we have as much time. There's a framework for every production, and you know, some are a little easier than others in terms of different areas, but it's always a compromise of some kind in order, you know, how are we going to best achieve what we're trying to say with the time and money we have? And Karen is in the thick of that, because her palette is probably the biggest of everyone's. I mean, she decorates a set. So if she's in I'm going to say office, which will make her cringe because we're doing 97 offices for this show. But if you're in an office, how many objects do you see around you? And every single one of those objects is selected by Karen or her team. It's generally not an accident. Generally, things are there because Karen has said, these are the things we're going to put together. So, as opposed to Checo, who only has a camera and 4 lenses. That's all.
5.
No, I'm teasing, of course, but I mean, there's a more specific palette of equipment for Checo, in terms of, it's not totally unlimited by the world, where Karen, it's like, well, how many chairs are there in the universe? Maybe 400 million, you know. Anyway, I'm saying that there's always restrictions and a format that you have to stick with while you're trying to figure all this stuff out. And Karen is amazing at it. I don't know how.
Well, I guess, you know, for me, I'm always, and why I've done this for so long, I'm always curious about choices that anybody makes, no matter where they live, whether they have a home or they don't have a home, or they have several homes, or I'm always curious about how people live, the choices they make. And so, and that's kind of what you're always with your eyes open, and the choices they make where they work or play. So, but that's my job, is to create a set that the film crew can come into and work within, and hopefully help in some way help facilitate the story. But my
That
day is,
goes back to what we were saying before too, about being in your own life, in the world, being aware of your surroundings, no matter where you are, and sucking it all in, because it applies.
somewhere.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
will
We'll
apply
use
for
it
me,
somewhere.
yeah, at some point. So and then I spend, I have a very, there's no way I could do it without a huge number of very talented and hardworking crew. People that are buyers, and people who are what we call a swing crew, but they have to put furniture in and put the small things in and then take it out and make sure that the location, if we were on a location, is returned to normal, or create a homeless encampment under an empty bridge. So sometimes I'm given an empty space, completely empty, and sometimes I've given a space that is relatively full, and we're only making a few changes to kind of augment specific details about a character.
And
So-
this is the Library of Congress.
Right.
Can I tell that story real quick?
Yes.
Karen, or do you want to tell it? I don't. Karen's working with Christy Zia on a movie that was shooting in Pittsburgh, and Pittsburgh, the train station had been empty. You know, it was just an empty space.
They've been
And
abandoned.
so Karen, they were scouting locations, and Karen was there with Christy Zia, and they're standing on the balcony looking out over this entire empty, giant train station. And the designer, Christy, looks at Karen and says, "And this is the Library of Congress." And so Karen had to take an empty train station of vacuous scale and turn it into the Library of Congress. It's like crazy what we do, you know, crazy. Just first that we would say, "Oh, okay, we'll figure that," you know, and what seemingly is an impossible task, and somehow we figure it out. You know, that part is really fun.
Step by step, but I don't do it by myself. I do it with a
No.
lot of people,
Yes.
and a lot of research, and a lot of shopping, and more research, and then trying to find things and bringing it kind of all together in time, so that when Checo and Karen Kane and the hundreds of people that arrive to film, it's ready. And it's easy for them to do what they need to do.
Just to add to Karen, and then Karen Kane, you should talk about prep and production, but just to add what Karen and Neil are saying, whoever is listening, take your face off the screen, turn around your face and look around in your house, not in this apartment that I rented that nothing belongs to me. And none of it I like, but then again, doesn't matter. Turn around, look at the couch, look at the throw, look at the little piece you bought when you travel or your grandma gave you. So your house is your house because it's your house, it's who you are. Karen and Neil get a script that looks like an envelope like this that comes with 80 pages. And at the beginning of the envelope and the beginning of the page says, and Dr. Such and Such, it's sitting lonely, taking in his environment. That's it. Okay, who's Dr. Such and Such? What environment are we talking about? How much money is gonna be? How do we do this? And when are we shooting it? So Karen and Neil had to understand this doctor more than even the writer, or even not even more than the director, but along with the director, they need to understand who this guy is, or this woman, or this whatever, this homeless encampment. every single piece of whatever it is, even trash in a corner, has a reason, because that's who people are and that's how they live. So if you turn around, that's your house. So Karen has to create and Neil has to create that space for that character that tells the character. And sometimes you just have a guy sitting in a corner and the camera just witness what these two people did with the 158 friends that they have working with them. And you take it in and you say, yes, it's a lonely guy that lost the family. Maybe the camera pans to the right and there is a picture of the family, and there is a lonely candle lit or not lit, or there is an empty bottle of beer, and you go, oh, he's lonely, he had a family, he's alcoholic. Or not. I have a bottle of wine and I'm not alcoholic, I think. But that's what they do with a phrase this long. Imagine the phrase in the Titanic, the James Cameron's movie, said literally, and the Titanic sinks. That's what the log line on the script said. And like that, I just show up and put my camera and put a few lights in there and enjoy what they did. So that part of the world, to me, it's fascinating.
It
It's
is
to us too.
fascinating.
Yeah. Yeah.
And Atlanta burned.
Exactly.
Exactly.
And
Right.
the army came over the hill.
Right. Right.
Yeah. My day is also like, we all have the same kind of format. We have pre-production, prep, and shooting. So in pre-production, I break down the script, scene by scene, element by element, eventually turning to Karen and Neil and the props department about what they're bringing into it, because everything written in a script isn't necessarily, you're going to see so much more. If the script says the guy walks up to the door and walks in the door, well, you got to have his keys. Does he have a lunchbox? Does he have a briefcase? Does he have a jacket? So I reach out to all the other departments to make it as comprehensive as possible, so that when we're shooting, we've all discussed what elements as much as possible we're bringing. And I mean, even things like false walls, and we're doing a stunt in my episode, and Neil's people will be providing some wallpaper so we can put some padding on the wall so the actress can hit her head, but we need to cover the padding with wallpaper, the matching wallpaper. So those are discussions that are had all in prep. And a lot of people think that you make a movie in prep, so that when you're finally in front of the camera, it's just shooting the actors, and everything that you possibly need or could have thought of is there. Shooting in it, the shooting days are, they're different depending on who the director is. Some directors like to rehearse at the beginning of the day, and the old saying, block, light, shoot. Other directors don't feel that way. They just you just come in, and Checo and I will discuss shots that we've discussed with the director the night before, and we light the room where we think people are going to go, and the actors come in and they're already made up, costumed, mic'd, every propped, and the actors have their little stations they go to, and you start the scene and you go through it, and there's a million things that can go wrong. There's 999,000 things that will go wrong, and you solve the problem. You got a dog in the scene, and be really great. The scene says the dog follows him up the stairs. Well, the dog has bad hips, and he's really big, and he weighs 200 pounds, and he doesn't really listen to commands. So the dog's not following anybody anywhere. And so now we're going to have the dog sit at the bottom of the stairs. But when the dog saw the camera, he started to run at the camera and bark at it. So that's a problem. So we'll work around that, and we'll move the dog, and we'll hide the owners so the owners can give commands off camera. And, that happens. There's nothing surprising. There's a fish in the scene. We're going to put some fish in the tank, but the tank makes noise. So the sound department doesn't want the filters on. So we have to turn the filters off, but we see the tank, the filters aren't going, the fish died. Oh, did we see that there were 2 fish in the last shot? Because now one is dead and floating on top of the water. So should we leave him? Will anybody notice? And that the great saying, if they're looking at the fish, there's something wrong with the scene. So, you know, things like this happen. We have the wrong wardrobe on. That's a little mistake. Let's fix the wardrobe. The mic pack doesn't, we're seeing the mic pack. Can we take the mic pack off the girl? Her dress is too tight. The skirt is too short. We can't see, we're seeing the mic pack. So these are the things that happen through the course of a filming day. And these are the things I love about it. No day is the same. I don't show up other than when I'm prepping. And even when I'm prepping, I'm out going to locations with Neil. And if there's a great luxury and it's a real proper movie, I'm going with Checo also. We're looking at locations together with the director, making decisions and creating what we hope is going to be a beautiful thing. And that's what's great about the job.
I have a question for you and Checo regarding what you just said. There are directors, I mean, we've all worked with a lot of people because we've been around for a while, but there are directors that we know that are very specific and do a rehearsal, and then they stick to the rehearsal, and the shots are very disciplined and, you know, like that. That's one side of the coin. Another side of the coin, and we've worked with these directors where it's very loose. There's no rehearsal. The actors come in and they do it, and you find your places, and, you know, like that. And their defense of it is that there's an energy, there's a spontaneity, there's a, you know, something that comes from the not doing the rehearsal. What do you guys think about that? Because it's always fascinating to me. You know, for me and Karen and the people who prep a show, we have to know ahead of time, you know, what you need, what needs to be there. You know, does something break? Does something fall? Because we have to prep for it, or, you know, whatever. But what about the idea of leaving the set from the first AD and the DP standpoint, leaving it open enough that, I mean, what kind of energy can you gain from making it less disciplined? Is it a better way to go, or is the more disciplined approach, you know, better?
Well,
you know what I'm saying? Technically, you can prep for it when you know what it is, but sometimes things that come out of spontaneousness, if that's a word, are valuable. You know, I don't know. What do you guys think about that?
Well, in my experience, and Checo has been with me on one of these experiences. So the director's theory is, I don't want actors hitting marks, because then they're focused on hitting the marks when they say a line at a certain spot. I need them to be comfortable enough to just throw all that away and do the performance naturally. So far in my experience, the directors have an idea of where they want the actor to go. The question is the actor going to go there? Because then you're just relighting. If you come in and you light a set, it's not lit so generally most of the time where you don't need to augment a few things when an actor lands at a certain spot. In our situation, the director has an idea that the actor is going to be sitting in this chair or standing in this location. If the actor doesn't agree to stand there, then, you know, you're adding some time to lighting, but the director's theory is still, hey, he's not caught up on like, hit this mark, hit this mark, hit this mark, say this line. On the other hand, if you talk to an actor, some actors, they throw all that away. If they know where they're landing while we're lighting, because then you bring them in, you block the scene, you say, okay, here's your mark, here's your mark, here's your mark. While they go back to hair and makeup and we light for 45 minutes to an hour, whatever it takes, the actor goes through the scene in their mind and they throw away all those hard marks, and they can let that go. Whether all actors can do that, I don't know. I've worked both ways. I have no real preference. I just know that sometimes,
like, from Checo's standpoint, he has to know where they're going to be, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
I I want to be a little, throw a Molotov cocktail in the conversation. I don't believe in any of both theories. I don't think the directors, and this is not the case of any specific director, but in general, the directors that don't want to rehearse and let the actors do more or less what they feel like, ultimately, they know exactly what they want. They know exactly what the actor should be. They know exactly how many steps they're going to take. And there are techniques to make that happen without anybody thinking that that will happen. The question is, do we all know that? It is public information. A rehearsal makes it a public information and restricts the movement to a certain extent. The bottom line is the director knows exactly what he wants and he will make that happen, whether it is gently, not so gently, dictatorially, it will happen. Whether I know what the final result is, no, that I don't know. As Karen said, I'm not in love with any of the two. It doesn't really matter. It matters when it's a very dark scene and we have to only see the glimpse in his eyes and he happens to sit against the wall. So then I have an issue. You know, there is no glimpse in the eyes when now you're against the wall because there is a wall. And Karen and Neil decided to paint the wall black. So there is nothing there. That I need to tweak. The directors that are very regimented, and I work with them, and the Titanic Gentleman is one of them. There is a very regimented process. His background is engineering, so therefore a screw has to be 14 millimeters wide, and a person has to take 4 steps before he cries or she cries. That is the same for me because it doesn't really matter. I just know the chaos I'm getting in ahead of time as opposed to learning the chaos in the moment. So that's where to me is the difference, whether I know about it a week before or I know about it a minute and a half before. And I have to roll with the punches. So I don't mind either or. And I think it's a myth that we let them know what they want, whatever they want. That's a little mythical to me. Ultimately, I work for the director, I work for the project, and his will, it's as strong as steel, whether it's the will to let them do what they want, and ultimately he'll twist that into a piece of steel that he likes, or he shows them the piece of steel and this is what the final result is going to be. So I think it's a little bit a combination of both. I don't have a preference. One system makes me sleep better at night, the other system doesn't, but I don't sleep much anyway, so it doesn't really matter.
So it sounds like flexibility is key for sure.
Absolutely.
Kelsey, do you want to tell us a little bit about what your typical day looks like if you have one? And then I have one more question for you all before we open it up to the audience.
Yeah, so everything that everyone was just discussing, that trickles down. So when you're in a support role, every day is going to be different, just like it's different for them. I would say the first part of the day is kind of, there's small picture stuff and big picture stuff. So the small picture stuff is like, okay, what are we out of today? Do we need more? I mean, just general office supplies, things like that. They're constantly printing drawings in the art department that need to go elsewhere. So that's on me and the other PAs. We're figuring out, okay, do they have everything they need so they can get through this day, just the people here at the office. And then beyond that, there's research, you need to go on lots of errands generally just to find your sampling things, or maybe Neil says, hey, there's something specific, I'm not exactly sure. Can we get some samples of this? So maybe go here, go here, go here. You have to think outside the box. Before you bring something in, you want to make sure that it's not just one great sample. It needs to go very far. Everything that you're bringing to them, it's going to be far. So it's, things like that. There's orders, working with the construction buyer from the art department, with art department, a lot of our stuff, it goes on to construction. We're working with set decks. So I work with, Karen O'Hara's PAs, Dalton and I, one of her PAs, were constantly talking about, are you going to the stage? Okay, do you want to take this? I'll get the second run later. You know, getting everything where it needs to go. There's a lot of important documents, and there are just a lot of small pieces that you may not realize. You know, it's kind of, as Checo was saying, every little detail. Somebody, like a human person, has to put that together and make sure it gets there. It has to be, you know, fully realized, you know, so that it's in front of, you know, everybody whenever they need it, you know, right then. So a lot of just listening, taking notes, making sure that you're on it, because people aren't going to ask you twice, kind of thing. You just need to be on your feet and understand where it fits into the story, so it's not just something you can sideline. Neil talked about it earlier, but something that I've been doing a lot is research, and I love doing that. So if, you know, there's a meeting in the art department about something that's happening further down the line, but we need to start doing it now, I will work with Trey, our graphic designer, or Chris, our art director, and, you know, get more of the information that they need and kind of just take off with any kind of research that I can think of. And they really give me the autonomy to kind of go where I think I will find it, because I've been able to find it in the past. So they say, hey, you're good at this. Do you want to try this? And so that kind of becomes part of my day. But everything is different, but you're never really just kind of like sitting around. You might be on your computer for a while because you're in a hole trying to find this one document so that you can get it to graphics, and then they can get it printed, and then they can get it to Karen, or, you know, Dalton will go pick it up and they'll take it straight to the stage because it's for tomorrow and we need it, that kind of thing. But it's a lot of fun, and you find yourself kind of not doing the same thing all the time, but it makes your brain kind of, you find a groove in it, I think. And that's kind of one of the best parts about it too.
Thanks, Kelsey. That's actually a great segue to my last question for you all. It's obvious you're all very passionate and love what you do. So this may be a bit of a challenging question, but if you had to pick one thing that you loved most about your job, what would it be? And on the flip side of that, if you had to pick the most challenging thing about what you do, what would it be?
Well, that's easy for me. I'm not a morning person. I've never been a morning person. And I hate every day getting up early. But I do it. And once I'm up and I've had, you know, a tea or a coffee, then I love every minute of what I do. But that 5 minutes of getting out of bed, I don't like. And I've not grown to like it. The thing I love about it is all the people that I either work with or that I just get to know. I've met a lot of people. I've had a lot of, you know, good things, bad things, but I've always learned a lot from it. And I love the variety of people that I've met and become friends with or gotten to know, and even within the film or sometimes connected to the film that have helped me. Those are the two things for me.
The thing I love most is that even though my position is supposedly to design the film, which it is, I love that I am able to take a kernel of an idea and say, okay, I think this is what we should do. And then because the art department has, I mean, in the immediate art, we haven't really talked about this, but in the immediate art department, there's Kelsey, there's an art department coordinator, there are art directors who manage construction and locations. There are set designers who actually create all of these sets, and illustrators sometimes who are doing drawings of all these sets. So the point being, there's a lot of creative people involved, and my little kernel of an idea gets bounced among all of these people. And my hope and dream is that everybody is collaborating and throwing things into the mix. So maybe my little kernel of an idea is really not the best one. You know, it's very often somebody else has a better idea, or they build on the idea, or they say, what if we, so what I love most about this business is that I start with this, you know, piece of paper with some words on it, and that through the collaboration of all of these people, one day you sit in the theater and you look at this scene and it's like, holy shit, how did we do that? You know, and it happened, pardon me, sorry. But you know, that it happens because of all of us, you know, contributing. So what I love most is that I have a thing, it gets spread to a whole bunch of people, and it becomes this amazing collaborative storytelling. Yeah. Thing I like least is, I guess, when you get yelled at about your budget.
I'm going to go with Neil on that. I mean, what I like most is, you know, you can do a scene where there's some people in a restaurant and they have a 2-page dialogue, and that's one thing to read in the script, and then to make that happen in the course of the day. But then there's also other scenes that you read and you're like, wow, this is big, you know, this is big. It's a lot of background, and there's going to be some stunts, and there's going to be a lot of special effects, and I want it to be great, and we want it to be dynamic. And then when you put it together and you're there on the day and you're all working together, and all the stunt players are all there, and all the special effects and the bombs and the smoke and the fire, and you see it come together, and you remember that when you read it on the page, you're a little intimidated by it because you do want it to be so great. And it turns out great. Those are the great days. Pardon me, Karen?
It's magic.
It's magic. It's magic. And it is so collegial. There's so many people. You know, I did a movie about football, and I had a football expert, but I knew about football. So we worked together. We designed these plays, and it's just great, you know. So that's, and I love that every day is different. Every day is absolutely different. Even if I'm in the office, it's just different because I'm going scouting, or I'm doing this, or I'm having meetings. And so every single day is different. I'm after prep, I'm never in the same location once, you know, even if we're on the stage, we're in a different location, we're in a different set. What I cannot stand about it is night. I do not shoot nights well. I don't take movies about hookers, and I don't take movies about zombies because they are always shot at night. And so yeah, nights are rough for me. I'm not good at 3 a.m.
Elsie or Checo?
I just want to go last.
Oh, I'll say that one of the best parts about the job, or the thing I love the most, is that you can, like, I don't think that I realize that because I think from an outsider's perspective, you might think that it's so competitive or it's so out of reach, especially if you're someone who's in Richmond, because I thought that when I was first here, I kind of thought, you know, it wasn't for me, but it so is. And I think that especially the Richmond community is rooting for you. We're all rooting for this, you know, to continue as an industry here. I support myself with it. You know, in between these larger shows, I have plenty of other work happening here. I can travel with this job as well. And as long as I continue to, you know, hustle and be curious and just do the thing, even if I'm not exactly sure what I'm doing yet, there are plenty of hands that are, you know, reaching out to me and saying, do you need some guidance in this? Or have you thought about this kind of thing? And I don't see myself necessarily staying in Richmond, but it's the thing that I feel like I see myself really growing in, because it really accepts like all walks of life. I would say that there's so much acceptance and so much mentorship that happens on a daily basis. And it's hard to find that sometimes if you're in a more traditional or conventional industry. And so it's a beautiful thing to see it, especially in Richmond, where there are so many creative people here who just want to thrive, and it's happening here. So I love that. The hardest part is probably kind of picking your path as a PA. I talk about this a lot with the other PAs in different departments, trying to figure out where you want to go, because we feel kind of still new and like we can, change direction, and trying to figure out, especially once you're in it, you see how you can really, as long as you're willing to work hard, you can go in different directions, figuring out kind of where I want to be in 10 years or where I want to be in 5 years, and, just committing to it, because there are so many fun things to try, I guess. It's hard to just kind of choose something and stay on that path, I'd say, just because it can be so accessible. It feels like pretty much any department can be accessible if you're like willing to work at it. If that makes sense.
So I'm gonna quote a friend of mine. I hate the business I'm in. I just love doing it. And I wake up in the morning and I'm like, oh my God, what am I doing at 5 in the morning in the middle of the road, freezing? And then all of a sudden magic happens and the actors come in and Karen tells me where should I be, and the sun rises in the corner and the camera is in the right place just by serendipity, not because I decided. And the sky is blue and the cloud is in the right place and it gives you goosebumps, and you say, oh, that's why I'm here.
Yep.
There is nothing better than that. And just to segue on Kelsey for a second, Richmond is fantastic because it's small, the community, they all know each other. If you work in another huge place, you don't know anybody. Here, my crew, they all know each other. They all are friends. This is my third job here. Very creative, beautiful city. But the people love what they do. It's not like they do this because it's $2 more an hour than being a carpenter, which in other cities may or may not happen. Chicago is a good example of that, Karen. Richmond is fantastic for that.
Thank you all for sharing all of that. And I love that you say that about Richmond, because of course, most of our attendees today, I'm guessing, live around here and are here today because they're interested in this field. So I'm going to move on to our Q&A. And actually, our first question is from Amanda, who is a high school video media teacher. And she wants to know how to encourage students who are interested in entering the film industry. What should sort of their first steps be? Internships? Are there things that they should get involved in during high school or college? What would be sort of your pieces of advice for high school students?
Elsie, what do you think?
In my world, internships, unfortunately, they used to be a thing that we all had interns, but with the organization of liability and insurance and lack of this and lack of that, I don't get the luxury of being able to do internships. No, I don't know other departments, Neil and Karen. DGA for Karen Kane, you do have internships, I believe. Here in the US, it has been eliminated in my departments. And I'm one of the guys that fights more for that because it's the only way you can get in, so it's hard. But Kelsey's perspective is great because you can start working as a production assistant. And that, I think, well, I don't know, in high school, I believe you can't, but that is something that you can do. And that is a wonderful way to getting in. But I may be completely wrong, Karen or Neil.
No, well, first of all, high school is a little early because I believe you have to be older than 18. But same that as Checo said, I agree with this. It used to be that we could hire an intern. But with liability now, we are no longer able to hire an internship, meaning unpaid. And so now the studios require that somebody is paid. And I think it's difficult. It's certainly, I think, the way to, if you're interested, is to talk to people that are in the community. see what their paths that they took, or what was important, what wasn't important. If you're deciding to go on to in school, whether it's a 2-year or a 4-year, or you don't, you can't do that, for whatever reason. You don't necessarily have to. So I think that's the wisest choice at that young age. You are also competing with people for the production assistant jobs, with people who do have more years and may have more experience. So it's a little, I think it's a little tricky, but I think to start reading and being aware and getting life experience, and then talking to people about their work, so that you can kind of make a path or start on a path for yourself, is a good thing. There are internship programs. I don't know here, maybe Kelsey, you can talk about that at various like television or theater or radio stations. I know that in Disney, for example, has a program. ABC has a program, but those aren't in this town. So
there are a lot of opportunities that are constantly posted on the Virginia Production Alliance website, and the film office as well. So the Virginia Production Alliance, they actually send out emails constantly. And, I think being older to be a PA is probably, it behooves you, because you're going to be more confident in what you're doing. You can certainly start out without having gone to film school, but I encourage you to keep track of that and see what projects are going on. The film office also, they do have internships that are listed for them, and also for other projects that are coming to town. There's also, once you're in the industry, it's kind of the networking that everyone talked about in the beginning, but if you love it, you're going to be asking, hey, do you know what else is coming to town? Do you need any help on this project? We have an accountant who's working on our show now, who I worked for a month when he was directing a short film, and he's an accountant and he does the accounting for most of the shows that come to town. But his real passion is, directing these short films, and he hires me to do a lot of that stuff with him. And so, those things were, and those are paid jobs, even though he's my friend, like I'm still getting paid and I'm, making money doing it. The other thing is VPM, which is the local, it's VPM News is a local, I guess they have a lot of production that goes on here, but then even outside of the city. So if you're willing to work, a few days here, a few days there, they do offer internships, I believe, in the summertime. But when they come to town, they'll also list that they need, PAs for 3 days or 4 days. And if you're, applying to those things, I think a little bit older, it probably is, a better shot. I think you just should be older whenever you do it. But you don't have to have a film degree to get those jobs necessarily. But if you're following that community, you'll work one day on a VPM, some thing for PBS or something like that. And then, through that, maybe you'll be talking to another local production company. Spang TV is a local production company that does a lot of commercials with the Martin Agency, which is a great, ad agency here. And so if you're not sure, just Google them, familiarize yourself with like what they do. Spang TV works a lot with them, and they're constantly hiring, PAs for just, a couple day shoots, and they'll bring the same people back, but they also offer internships in the summertime. So follow Spang. I'm not sure how it's working this summer with the pandemic and COVID and vaccine rollout and everything. So you're coming in at a strange time, but at the same time, you can follow those things. And there is work to be had here. VPA announces a lot of the Virginia Production Alliance. They announce a lot of the projects that are coming to town via their listserv, which is their email. It's free to join. You can join the Virginia Production Alliance by paying a lot of money. I don't do that. I still get all of the emails and the intel to know what's coming to town. Or my friends, we're all kind of constantly talking about it. And the Virginia Film Office is constant. They have a job board on their website, so you can go there, see if there's internships or PA positions. And if it's something you're interested in, just reach out. Even if you're not sure, you know, just reach out and give it a try, you know.
I would say if you're over 18 and you see a film shoot and you want to work on a film set and you see a film shoot on the street, I would ask to speak to the key PA. I would hand that person my phone number and my name and just let them know that I'm interested. And the moment they call, you show up. That's the most important thing, is that you show up. Because this is a weird, this is very funny about this profession. You can't be late. You can't be late, and you can't not show up. And when I worked in the corporate world, I could be a half hour late, 20 minutes late, 30 minutes late. Nobody cared, you know. In this business, I cannot be late. I'm actually 45 minutes early to work. So if you have the opportunity, you ask for the key PA, you tell them you're willing to work, and if they call you, you go. And those are the little baby steps. And if you get on set, not everybody wants to be in the assistant director department, and I get that. I do not take it personally whatsoever. We're not the most glamorous department. The camera department is usually the most glamorous department. But the good thing is once you're on set, you meet Checo. You meet Mark, his first assistant camera focus puller. You meet Joseph. You meet Karen's team if you want to be in the art department. You meet everybody. You don't, like Kelsey said so accurately, you don't have to make decisions right away. You can navigate your way through the set. I know people who worked in my department and they became the dolly grip, you know, so meet the people. And again, back to what Neil mentioned earlier, it's about you and what you bring to the job. You're going to meet everybody. There's a lot of people who know a lot of great people and get jobs. It doesn't make them great at their job, but you know, meet people, make yourself available, show up when they ask you to show up, and you'll be surprised. You'll be pleasantly surprised how quickly the word gets out that you're good. Especially, remember, I have 7 to 10 production assistants in my department alone. Those 7 to 10 people know other people. They know people on Swagger. They know people on The Walking Dead. They know people on the David Simon or David Chase show that's coming to town. Succession is coming to town in May. You know, those people talk to people. They exchange phone numbers. You can get on that job. You know, these people who come in for 4 or 5 days, they don't know anybody. So the fact that your number may get around, that's how you build up this network of people. And make a name for yourself and show up. And
the other thing I always tell everybody is that, and this is, I remember for me, really worked, is not only being on time or early, but be the person to put your hand straight up in the air no matter what the task is. People would say, oh, Karen, could you get bagels for the cinematographer at 3 a.m. so that you could be there at 5? And that was me, first one. Yes, I'll do it. I couldn't wait to do it because I so wanted that job. And so some people will realize, oh, she's okay with, she'll go and grab that stuff. She is passionate about it. And that to me is something that makes one person more valuable to me. Not that I'm going to try and abuse that, but I know that they have a passion for it, that they really want to learn, and they'll be the first person to say, I'll research this, I'll run and go get that. That makes a big difference than somebody who's like, oh, do I have to go? It's 45 minutes away. I'd say, well, yep, it is. So
Karen, you should have told me about the bagels.
Well, it's at 5 a.m. Karen's not bringing you nothing anymore, like she said.
I hated it, but I didn't like getting up at 3, but whatever. I'd say, yes, I'll do that. I was so wanted to help people.
All right. Thank you all so much. We are a little over time, so thank you for sticking with me. And I apologize that we didn't get to all the questions in the chat, but I hope that everybody that attended today was able to take away some, some really valuable information to get you started on this career path if it's the one that you choose to pursue. And I want to thank all our panelists for joining us, taking time on their Saturday to join us. As I said, I know you all are sort of in the heat of production right now. So I appreciate you making the time to do this. If you have questions, you are welcome to reach out to me and I can forward them along to the appropriate person. My email is in the event listing on our library website. And as I mentioned earlier, we are recording and we will be posting this to our YouTube channel, hopefully next week. So you can check it out there if you want to pass this on to anybody who may not have been able to attend today, or if you just want to revisit it, you're welcome to do that too. So thank you all for joining me today. I hope you have a lovely weekend.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.